Hello Internet, welcome back to Does It Science, your spirit guide through the fractal forests of faux intellectual feel-gooderies. Today's topic is...
trippy.
Alright, let's jump right in. Alright, theme song. Now, I don't want to alarm you guys, but pretty much everyone is on drugs. At least that's how it would probably seem if you were to look at our history and fascination with psychedelic experiences through a wide lens. From the prehistoric to the postmodern, civilizations on every continent but Antarctica, because it's Antarctica, have turned to their own subconscious to find answers, seek healing, and discover themselves. All with the power of a little mushroom, or cactus flower, or synthesized fungus, or Peruvian dirt water. You get the idea. Drugs. They use drugs. But is there any real value to these experiences? And more importantly, is there any truth to the more extraordinary claims being made by proponents of these experiences? And if not, can they still be of value to us? First, we need to run down the list, starting with falsifiability. I guess we should point out that due to the legal status of these substances, proper double-blind controlled studies are hard to come by. Also, there are really two answers to these questions: what proponents would like to believe to be true and what is evidently true. In one study, infamously known as the Good Friday experiment, half of the participants received psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, as if you didn't already know that, while the other received niacin. At a large enough dose, niacin produces clear physiological changes, making it an adequate control. From this, we learn that religious fervor in psychedelic experiences is indeed genuine. However, it does nothing to tell us if these experiences have any basis in objective reality. Reproducibility. Yes and no. No, in that the same dose of the same substance, even from the same source, is not guaranteed to produce the same effects. You see God, I see Lou Ferrigno mud wrestling a sun bear. However, there are promising results from studies on the physical side effects of psychedelic drugs. That is to say, the medical benefits may indeed prove reproducible. Control. As noted before when I said,
at a large enough dose, niacin produces clear physiological changes, making it an adequate control.
We do control for the physiological variables at play. What we can't control for is perception versus reality, the subjective versus the objective. But if I were to wager, I'd say it's safe to err on the side of skepticism, because consistency. As we've discussed in previous episodes, the mind is the brain, is the mind, is the brain, is the mind, is the brain, is you. If you damage the brain, you damage the mind. If you temporarily alter the brain, you alter the mind. And as the brain is the biological machine tasked with the processing of sensory input, if you distort or amplify the input being sent to the brain, the mind is going to interpret that information in a distorted or amplified way. In other words, the psychedelic experience is consistent with our understanding of the mind as the seat of consciousness. It is certainly not consistent with the reality itself. Naturalistic explanations for naturalistic phenomena. Basically what I just said, but also you taking drugs isn't a natural explanation, even natural drugs. The phenomena, let's say talking to God, is not natural, nor is inducing an altered state of consciousness a valid explanation. However, when we look at, say, the chemical structure of lysergic acid diethylamide in comparison to serotonin, we see a natural explanation for a natural phenomenon. Namely, the potential value of psychedelic drugs in stimulating serotonin production. So, what have we learned so far? The mystical aspects of the psychedelic experience are still unfalsifiable, subjective, uncontrolled, and inconsistent with our understanding of natural philosophy. But there is a bright side. In recent years, studies into the neurological and psychological benefits of psychedelic drugs, like LSD and mellow mushrooms, have shown exciting results. On the topic of addiction, we have Pjorun Johansen and Terry Krebs of the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, who analyzed 6 clinical trials of LSD from 1966 to 1970, and published their results in March in the Journal of Psychopharmacology. The subjects were undergoing treatment for alcohol addiction at an inpatient clinic. All underwent the standard regimen, but a few were given a single small dose of LSD. Of those who had taken LSD, 59% decreased their alcohol consumption, as compared with 38% who did not take LSD. 6 months after leaving the treatment, those who took LSD were 15% more likely to be sober. Or concerning depression, a 2016 study in the Journal of Psychopharmacology demonstrates that psilocybin could be an effective means of therapy for people with life-threatening diseases like cancer and the existential dread that comes along with it. Hell, there's even solid reason to believe that they can cure cluster headaches, according to many studies, including a 2006 study published in the Neurology Journal. The authors interviewed 53 patients who had used LSD or psilocybin to treat their condition. 22 of 26 psilocybin users reported that psilocybin aborted attacks. 25 of 48 psilocybin users and 7 of 8 LSD users reported cluster period termination. 18 of 19 psilocybin users and 4 of 5 LSD users reported remission period extension. So far, this has been the only promising lead into treating cluster headaches. It would seem reasonable to say that we've only scratched the surface of the medical benefits of these magnificent compounds. And without encouraging anyone to break the law, I would like to advocate for the value of these experiences. They've been a part of our culture since before we had culture. From cave paintings depicting magic mushrooms over 10,000 years ago, to the sacred rites and rituals of shamanic practices up to this very day, the mind is an open frontier, and we can all learn from looking inward. Does this mean that everything we see is inherently true? Not in the way this show is concerned with. But does that matter? Perhaps the mystical, spiritual, transcendent part of the psychedelic experience is necessary for the actual benefit it provides. So yes, psychedelic drugs totally science, but your experience does not. And you might be asking yourself, so what? What does it matter if my beliefs can't be empirically tested or falsified? What's true to me is true to me, and that's all that matters. You have your truth, and I have mine. I am so glad you asked, because that's how we bring this whole thing together. Next week. Like and subscribe. See you soon.